The Chosen Season 5, Episode 1 opens not with chaos but stillness. A fragment of the Last Supper. A quiet moment. But something feels off. Judas is gone. The seat is empty, and though no one speaks of it directly, the air is thick with what's missing. This decision to divide the Last Supper into 8 smaller scenes across the season is without question one of the boldest creative choices The Chosen has made. And it works. It forces us to slow down, to lean in, to feel the tension building like a storm on the horizon. Instead of rushing through that sacred moment, we're invited to examine it piece by piece. This isn't just a meal, it's the unraveling of hope, the quiet dread before the cross. What hits hardest is how much isn't said. Jesus speaks, but only some understand him. The theme of this episode is clear. Not everyone can hear the truth, even when it's right in front of them. Mary Magdalene knows. She always does. She watches him closely, his pain, his weariness, the weight of knowing what's to come. Beside her, Mother Mary senses it too. Their expressions don't mirror the excitement of the others. While the disciples are caught in the joy of arriving in Jerusalem, Mary and Mary are preparing for a funeral. It's heartbreaking, especially when you realize they don't say much. They don't have to. Their silence says everything. And then there's John, sensitive, observant, the one who notices things others miss. When Jesus enters Jerusalem, not through just any gate, but through the very gate used for the sacrificial lambs, John understands. He sees what no one else is ready to see. This is not a king's triumph. It's a lamb walking willingly to the slaughter. That realization is heavy, chilling, but John doesn't speak it aloud. Not yet. Instead, it simmers under the surface, another unspoken truth in a sea of confusion. You can almost feel him holding his breath, waiting for the moment everyone else catches up. Even the sound design plays with this theme. Thunder echoes through the sky, but it's not just thunder. Some think it's angels. But those who truly understand hear something else entirely. A voice. The voice of God. I have glorified it, and will glorify it again. It's pulled directly from John 12:28, and in a quiet reveal during the live stream, Dallas Jenkins confirmed the voice was actually Jonathan Rumi's. This wasn't random noise, it was divine affirmation. And yet, only a few hear it for what it is. The rest, confused, distracted. That's what this episode does so well. It reminds us that not everyone heard Jesus clearly, even those who walked beside him. And then the blood. Jesus sees it, dripping down the walls of Jerusalem, not just his own, but the future blood of an entire people. It's a horrifying vision, a prophecy not just of the crucifixion, but of the siege to come. Within a generation, Rome will tear Jerusalem apart, the temple destroyed, thousands slaughtered. It's not just a metaphor, it's a warning. And Jesus sees it while everyone else sees palm branches and cheering crowds. This contrast is devastating. Because we, the viewers, know the truth. We know what's coming, and we can do nothing but watch. Even more haunting, one of the Roman soldiers shown torturing and killing is played by Dallas Jenkins himself. A subtle insertion. You wouldn't know unless you were looking for it. But it's there. And that's what this episode is full of hidden meanings, layered moments, threads you only notice if you're paying close attention. Like the Watcher. Yes, he returns. Quiet, mysterious, observing everything. We don't know his full story yet. Some of you might already suspect who he is. I do, but for now, I'll say this. Seeing the world through his eyes changes everything. He sees what others ignore. He follows threads the disciples never notice. Even small details like Yusuf changing his robe or Kofni arriving with a gang of men, he writes it all down. He doesn't speak, he just watches. This episode doesn't rush. It lingers in the dread, in the silence, in the moments we'd rather skip. And yet, it never feels slow. Every scene is heavy with meaning. Every glance tells a story. And as we get to the end of the episode, Jesus begins preparing his whip. Not yet at the temple, not yet flipping tables, just preparing. Quietly. John watches from a distance, and we're reminded again, Jesus knows what he must do. But no one else is ready for it. Not really. Not even Judas. Especially not Judas. Because this, the silence, The blood, the voice from heaven his, is what finally drives Judas away. 6:10 p.m., 18:06:25. Bilal, the storm is coming closer now, and though no one says it out loud, the air is thick with it. You can feel it in every glance, every silence, every unfinished sentence. Jesus is still speaking, still teaching. But now, the meaning behind his words is sharper, heavier. This is where the theme of speaking plainly becomes undeniable. He's no longer cloaking truths in parables. There's no time for that anymore. He talks about leaving, about being lifted up, about what's to come. But even as he speaks clearly, only a few truly hear him. Most don't understand. They nod, but they don't know. And that's what makes it all the more tragic. Because he's telling them. He's offering them the truth. And it's slipping through their fingers, like trying to hold on to smoke. The episode circles this idea again and again, some see, and some never will. It's John, with his sensitive spirit, who notices the gate Jesus chooses. Not just any entrance. It's the one the sacrificial lambs are brought through. And it hits John like lightning. He doesn't say much, but his eyes say everything. This isn't just a triumphal entry, it's a silent walk toward slaughter. The people are shouting Hosanna, laying palm branches at Jesus' feet, dreaming of liberation. But the man they celebrate is walking to his death, and only a few hearts are breaking over it. Mary sees it. Mother Mary sees it. John sees it. The others, still caught in dreams of kingdoms and power. And then comes the thunder, a rumble that shakes the ground, and everyone has a different explanation. Some say angels, some say weather, but a few, a very few, know the truth. It's the voice of God. That moment, so brief yet unforgettable, is straight from John 12:28. Father, glorify your name. And the reply, I have glorified it and will glorify it again. The voice isn't booming or theatrical. It's calm, clear. And yet, even with that divine voice echoing over them, most people don't understand what they've heard. Some are confused, some are frightened, and a few pretend they didn't hear anything at all. It's easier that way. Easier to ignore the thunder than to admit it spoke directly to you. And the fact that this voice was portrayed using Jonathan Rumi's own voice adds an eerie intimacy to the moment. Almost like Jesus heard the Father within himself. And that's exactly what The Chosen wants us to feel. But what lingers even more than the thunder is the vision. Jesus sees blood again, this time dripping down the walls of Jerusalem. Not just his own blood, but the blood of the city. A warning, a prophecy, a vision of destruction. And it's not a metaphor, it's real. Because history tells us that just over 30 years later, Roman forces would crush Jerusalem. The temple would burn, the people would die or be enslaved, and Jesus sees all of it before it ever happens. He sees the end, and he mourns it. Not because they didn't worship him, but because they never understood him. They thought he came to rule, but he came to die, and they missed it. The scene where a Roman soldier tortures a Pharisee is brutal, but hidden behind that scene is something else. Dallas Jenkins himself, playing the soldier. A quiet cameo, no glory, just violence and confusion. And it's fitting, because the pain of this future isn't meant to be center stage. It's a shadow hanging over the present. Judas remains a ghost through all of this. He's not in the room, but his absence is loud. Every time Jesus speaks about what's coming, we're reminded, Judas isn't just gone physically, he's gone spiritually. His heart has already shifted, and while the others talk about loyalty, about staying with Jesus until the end, Judas is making his arrangements, planning a betrayal wrapped in the illusion of righteousness. Because Judas doesn't see it as betrayal. Not yet. He sees it as correction. He thinks he's pushing Jesus to take power, forcing his hand. And that's the most tragic part. Judas doesn't want Jesus dead. He wants Jesus to change. But he doesn't realize Jesus can't change because he's already perfect. And this path of suffering, it's the only way to save them all. In the midst of this, we continue to catch glimpses of the Watcher, silent, watching, writing. No one notices him, and yet he sees everything. He watches as Yusuf changes into simpler clothes, a sign of humility. He watches Khafni's men slip into the city, spreading lies about Jesus, poisoning the crowd's faith. These are things the disciples miss, but the watcher doesn't. His perspective is like a mirror reflecting the undercurrents of the story, what people don't want to see, what they're too distracted to catch. And for those of us watching, his presence is a constant reminder that this isn't just a story about miracles and sermons. It's a story of war, a war of belief, of truth versus perception. And in that war, most are losing without even knowing it. As the episode continues, the weight of what's coming starts to press harder against the edges of every moment. The city may be filled with cheers and waving palms, but underneath that joy is something darker, something unraveling. Jesus sends Zebedee home with the women, a quiet instruction that feels more like a farewell. He tells them to go back to Bethany, not because he doesn't love them, but because he does. He doesn't want them to witness what's about to unfold. The cruelty, the betrayal, the blood. But even this separation is temporary. We already know Mother Mary will stand beneath the cross when the time comes. She will be there at the end, because she always was. Still, this moment is heartbreaking. There's a kind of quiet dread in it, a farewell wrapped in mercy. And the women, especially Mary Magdalene, seem to understand the weight of this moment in ways the men still can't. Meanwhile, the tension in Jerusalem is building. The temple grounds are not what they used to be. Instead of holy reverence, there's chaos. Merchants shouting, animals tied and caged, money changing hands like it's a market square. It's no longer a place of prayer. It's a business profiting off faith. Jesus walks through it, his eyes not angry yet, but focused. You can see the storm coming. He doesn't lash out right away. No, he watches, takes it in, stores it somewhere deep, and later, quietly at home, he prepares. John sees him silently watching as Jesus makes the whip. He doesn't interfere, he doesn't ask. He just watches. And Jesus lets him. Because even in this moment of silence, Jesus is teaching, showing John what righteous anger looks like when it's not about revenge, but about justice. It's hard not to think of Judas here, because while Jesus is preparing his whip, Judas is preparing something else entirely. A plan, a betrayal, a deal with Caiaphas. But what makes this episode so powerful is that Judas is already gone. His absence is louder than any words he could have spoken. He doesn't need to be there for us to feel him slipping away. And that's what makes it terrifying. It's not sudden. It's slow, subtle. It starts with doubt, turns into frustration, then becomes bitterness. Judas wanted a king who would rule with power, not a lamb who would suffer. And when Jesus begins to speak plainly, when he stops hiding the pain, the truth, the destiny, Judas doesn't want to hear it. He tunes it out and walks away. But that moment of walking away doesn't happen in front of the others. It's quiet, private. And by the time they realize it, it's too late. He's already made his choice. And still, the others don't fully understand. They see Jesus as he's always been, their teacher, their guide, their miracle worker. But they don't yet see the man who's about to carry a cross. Only Mary, John, and Mother Mary truly see the shift. And this is something The Chosen does so well. It doesn't scream its themes. It whispers them, lets them unfold. And that makes them hit even harder, like the vision of blood on the walls. Jesus sees it again, and this time it's not just a vision. It's a certainty, a prophecy that he carries alone. The others are still dreaming of victory, of a throne, of a revolution. But Jesus, he sees a hill outside the city, a crown of thorns, and the weight of sin on his shoulders. And he's still walking forward. That's what breaks your heart. He knows. And he goes anyway. The Watcher's presence in this episode grows even more mysterious. He's not just observing anymore, he's analyzing, studying, writing everything down like it matters. Because it does. While others are distracted, he sees. And while we don't know his true identity yet, we can feel his importance. His eyes linger on things no one else notices, like the arrival of Kophni's men, a detail so small it would be missed by anyone not paying close attention. But the Watcher sees it, just like he sees Yusef's subtle change of clothes, a sign that something is shifting inside him too. These background movements, the ones barely visible, are what give The Chosen its depth. Every moment is layered, every character arc threaded quietly through scenes that seem, on the surface, simple, but they're not. They're filled with meaning. As the sun begins to set on this episode, we feel the pressure building, like the calm before a war, the quiet before the temple erupts. And though Jesus hasn't raised his voice yet, we know what's coming. We've seen the trailers, we've heard the whispers. The whip is ready. The temple will fall. But before that, there's still this heavy silence. And in that silence, Judas turns. Not with a dramatic outburst, not with a cry, but with a quiet resolve that Jesus is not who he hoped for. And in that moment, Judas is already gone. The episode walks a fine line between beauty and tragedy. It gives us moments of light, like the brief peace between Jesus and his closest friends, but shadows keep falling over everything. And we, the audience, know what's coming. We're walking with them toward a cliff, and they still don't see the edge. They think there's time, that Jesus will fix it, that he'll snap his fingers and bring a new kingdom overnight. But the kingdom he's building, it doesn't rise with swords, it rises with a cross. And now, everything begins to unravel. The signs are no longer hidden. They are screaming in plain sight. The final part of this episode is a slow, devastating march towards something no one can stop. Jesus stands before the crowd again, not with a parable, but with truth. He says plainly, "The light is with you for just a little while longer. Walk in it before darkness overtakes you." But it's already happening. The light is fading. Not because it's losing power, but because people are closing their eyes, choosing the shadows. The people who cheered his arrival with palm branches are now uncertain. The Pharisees whisper, the Romans linger, and the crowds begin to splinter. And this is what The Chosen understands better than any show before it. Betrayal doesn't start with a kiss. It starts with doubt, with distraction, with small, quiet moments where people stop listening, stop trusting. Even the disciples are cracking. You can see it in their faces. Thomas, confused and heartbroken. Matthew, trying to hold on to logic in a world where nothing makes sense anymore. Simon the Zealot, ready for a fight that will never come. And Andrew, his heart is already breaking, but he still can't see the full picture. Only John stays close to Jesus in spirit. Only Mary keeps her eyes fixed on the truth. And as for Mother Mary, she's already mourning, not because her son is dead, but because she knows he will be. And there's nothing she can do to stop it. She sees it in his eyes, the softness, the goodbye already forming in his voice. But the real blow comes when Jesus tells the people, for the last time, what he's here for. He speaks of being lifted up, of drawing all people to himself. He's predicting the cross, but they don't hear it. They argue. They question. Who is this Son of Man? They ask. They still don't understand. They don't want a savior who dies. They want a warrior, a conqueror. And Jesus walks away, not because he's done, but because they've made their choice. He came with open hands, and they turned their backs. It's not a dramatic exit. It's quiet, painful, final. And as he leaves the crowd, the camera stays behind, watching the confusion grow, watching the fear set in. The light of the world just walked away, and no one followed. Meanwhile, Judas walks deeper into darkness. We don't need to see him to know it. His shadow lingers in every corner of the story. And when Jesus speaks about betrayal, about being lifted up, it's as if he's already talking past the moment, past the temple, past the garden. He sees the upper room, the broken bread, the stolen kiss, and even now, he still loves Judas. That's the part no one talks about. Jesus knows what's coming, and he still loves him, still washes his feet, still calls him friend. That's what makes this episode so powerful. It's not just about betrayal. It's about love. Love that endures even when the heart is breaking. And in the very last moments, we return to the vision. The blood, the whip, the temple about to erupt. Jesus is ready now, not to fight, but to fulfill. The anger we saw building in him has crystallized into purpose. The whip isn't about violence. It's about reclaiming what was lost. The temple has become a den of thieves, and he's about to cleanse it, not just for tradition, but for justice. Because if this place is to fall, it must fall in truth. And when he steps into that chaos, it won't be as a rebel, it will be as a lamb who roars. And that's where The Chosen leaves us, on the edge of everything. Judas is already gone. The Last Supper hasn't happened yet, but the table is being set. And Jesus? He's walking alone now. Even surrounded by crowds, he's alone, because only he knows what's next.